Hey guys, what's going on? We are now in October. Spooky season has begun. I know we're a few days into it, but I want to sort of get started with a new series pretty soon where I'm going to be reviewing horror movies, which really isn't anything new. I just want to do more of it for October. So, we're going to start off with a franchise review, and this is one of my favorite horror franchises for now, Scream. So, I've seen all the Scream movies, and some are better than others, but overall, it's just a fun franchise. There's always goofiness to it. The meta jokes are always great. The killer reveal, it's always exciting, whether it's a good movie or a bad movie. When it comes to a Scream movie, trying to guess out who the killers are, that's half the fun of watching a Scream movie in the first place. And some movies, it's harder to guess than others. So let's sort of get into it. So I actually have a mostly steelbook collection for this franchise. So we got the first Scream we're going to talk about. Now I really like the steelbook. I like the first one. It's got sort of just that classic Ghostface reflection in the knife. It's got that quote on the back, and I just really like these steelbooks a lot. Now, interestingly enough, I'll show you guys later. Scream 2, 3, and 4, I don't believe they've made a 4K release for yet. This one, the first one, is in 4K, and then Scream 5 and 6 are in 4K as well. But they haven't made a 4K, as far as I'm aware, of 2, 3, and 4. So, this movie, I sort of want to do a category of which movies have the best XYZ. So, I think this movie deserves having the best opening. I think the opening is iconic. It sort of sets the premise and sets the stage for what projects the rest of this movie, propelling the franchise into what it is today by going against expectations, having your main character in the opening get killed. And so that's sort of what the Scream movies have always been, is going against expectations, doing something different, something unpredictable, keeping it fresh, keeping it new. I always like that about the Scream movies. And so the first one is a prime example of, even though it came out, not as early as what others consider classic horror movies, I consider this one a classic even for when it released, just because of its sort of effect on its effect on the genre of horror movies at all. This was one of the first, maybe it wasn't the first, but it was the first popular horror movie where having two killers was a thing. And that was the whole thing about Scream. I don't know how many of you guys, when you saw Scream for the first time, if you saw it recently, the past few years, I didn't have any spoilers from Scream whatsoever with any of them. So I didn't know who was going to die, who was Ghostface, who made it out of the opening scenes. I was completely surprised by the two Ghostface reveal in the first movie. So that was something that I absolutely appreciated about it. Is, like I said, it was something different than the other horror movies I have seen. So that's what sets the first one apart. Plus, you have that classic cast. There really wasn't a bad actor in the movie. It was fun. It was nostalgic. It was something different. It was a fresh take. And the thing with Ghostface, especially the first one, is Ghostface is kind of clumsy, to be honest. He's running through the house, he's tripping over stairs or something on the floor. This is not some Michael Myers where it's just this gruesome, soulless thing. These are people putting on a mask. So the Scream franchise, there is no supernatural elements to it. There's no constantly coming back to life. There's no somehow Ghostface survived. We don't have any of that in the franchise. And each and every movie so far, there's been a new set of Ghostface or Ghost Faces in pretty much every one of them. We have yet to have one Ghostface survive the end of the movie and still be Ghostface in the next one. And so we have our main characters, but we get something new every single time. They have different motives, they have different intentions, different reasonings, and so that's what makes it so fun. So I think Scream 5 not only cements itself by having the best opening for a Scream movie, I'm just going to say that I think Scream 1 has the best Ghostface characters. Billy and Stu were just, I mean, the actors had a great onstage presence about them. Even before and after the Ghostface reveal, Matthew Lillard obviously went on to become an icon. Um, and Billy Loomis is, there's so many people when they think of Ghostface, he's the one they'll think of. And so that's why I think it's the best one. They're the best Ghostface because they made their roles iconic. Now, again, it is the first one. It's easier to do that with the first one. It's harder to make yourself iconic in sequels. But that being said, we've had some good ghost faces later on. We've had some bad ghost faces later on. But Billy and Sue were the best ones. And so we're going to move on to the next one now. This is the Blu-ray Steelbook. We have Scream 2. Now, this sort of has that theater vibe to the front with, of course, that quote on the back is again as well. So I like the Steelbook a lot. Like I said, these, when I started collecting these, the first one, the Steelbook, had been re-released, so I picked it up. But finding the Scream 2 and 3 Steelbook was a challenge. So when I found it, needless to say, I was very happy to have this one in my collection. And the thing with Scream 2 is, even though Scream 2 has a obvious lacking of Billy and Stu, I think the second one was able to still capture the same vibe as the first one. It had the same nostalgic feel, it had the same fresh new takes on the meta, quotes and comments and what have you. So I think the second one feels much closer to the first one than any of the rest of the sequels. And so I think it was great. Obviously, Scream 1, I would say, has the best opening, best Ghostface reveals. But I would almost argue that I think the second one has the second best Ghostface reveal. Only because we have Billy's mother now is Ghostface. And what's interesting is she had there was nothing that made us believe that she could have been Ghostface. Same with Mickey. He was their friend. He was a friend to the group, and he has his own motives. And so I think Scream 2 sort of had one of the more original Ghostface reveals because it was hard to place who was Ghostface or not. And like I said, that's the fun of these movies. But I think the second one kept the suspicion going. I think it was very hard to guess who's Ghostface because I didn't guess Becky or Miss Loomis. So I really like the second one a lot. Like I said, it captures the same vibes. It has the same level of stakes, I think, as the first one. And it was a fun movie. I think this one was great. It's obviously not the best one, because the first Scream will always be special to me. But I think Scream 2, in and of itself, was a really great horror movie. So I'm glad they made it. I'm glad they have a steelbook for it now. And this just contributes to the reason why I'm excited for another Scream movie. Now we have Scream 3. So, aside from the other two, I like the red cover for this. I thought it was pretty cool. Of course, we got a quote on the back as well. But I just love the red design. I just really like it a lot. There's something about a horror movie steelbook that's red. It's just has a certain coolness to it that the others don't have. And the thing on Scream 3 is, I know fans are divided whether or not it's a great movie, it's genius, or it's just bad. I've heard a lot of mixed things about Scream 3, but it does cement itself as the only film in the franchise to have only one Ghostface. And so it almost makes the killer as a character more impressive because this had one of the highest kill counts. I'm not knowledgeable enough to go into a deep dive of the entire franchise kill counts. I'll leave the more knowledgeable people. I'll leave that to them. But I do know that this was a very high kill count for only one Ghostface. And I love the meta jokes in this one because there were some production issues, and the issues behind the scenes made it into being a joke in the third movie as well. So that whole side to those jokes made it more entertaining. And having only one Ghostface, it did go against expectations because we're guessing at which two people could be Ghostface. And so that made it fun. It gave us something different. And Roman was actually related to Sydney. He's actually her brother, as we find out. And so for the franchise, this is the first time that someone in her family is Ghostface, even though she didn't know him until basically the final act. But I think it's notable that they had a good on-screen chemistry between the whole brother and sister thing, even though it was short-lived. So I thought that was pretty cool. So against what a lot of people say, I actually really liked Scream 3. Was it better than for the first and the second one? No, but it was still enjoyable. And that's the thing about the Scream movies, is there's always something to enjoy about it. And that's what I enjoyed about this one. So that's the third movie, guys. Now let's move on to the fourth one. The fourth movie was not made by Paramount, so it is the only Scream movie that they have not made a steelbook for. As far as I know, they don't make a 4K for either. And so we have our standard Blu-ray. And so in this movie, this took place, I know it was like late 2000s. I know I should know the year it came out, but it came out a decent time after the first three. And so enough time has passed in this movie. The whole anniversary of Billy and Sue's killings was sort of the event going on in the movie. Now, when I said I want to vote on the worst Ghostface reveal and the worst opening scene, unfortunately, Scream 4 for me has the worst opening scene. Now, I get it. It was something different. It was original. But for me, going into a Scream movie, like with the first one, we see the girl dying in the beginning. And then for the next two, they have their own openings. But this one was just so crazy and so in-universe meta. It was almost confusing. And so it kind of took me out of it for a bit. It was hard to follow. There's three constant reveals that ended up just being within the movie. So I think Scream 4, in my opinion, just unfortunately has to be the worst opening scene. Just because there really wasn't anything iconic about it. It didn't feel different. It felt weird, but not in a good way. So I don't have any hate for this movie. I just think if I had to rank them, Scream 4's opening just falls at the bottom of the list. Now, when it comes to Ghostface reveals, I think this might end up being the second worst Ghostface reveal, and we'll get to the worst one, in my opinion. This one, I just felt that the acting became a little awkward. Sydney's cousin, Jill, she is revealed to be one of two ghost faces, her and her friend Charlie. And so in Scream 4, having this is now the second time, right after the third one, that someone in her family is Ghostface. And the movie was fine for most of its middle. We get past the opening. Most of its middle, I thought, was enjoyable. There was something different. There were neat things thrown in there. There was the constant, where is Ghostface at this and that time. And so there was something fresh about it, and I did appreciate it. But after the killer reveal, I just thought the characters acted sort of really goofy. And I know Emma Roberts, she was just, doing what she was paid to do. I just thought it became almost corny at that point with the whole trying to pin the evidence on someone else and jumping back first into a glass table. I thought it became ridiculous. I thought the acting was okay. It was just the writing for what happened after that reveal. I thought it was just a little too corny to take seriously. I just couldn't take the killer seriously. And Emma Roberts has had good roles. She's had bad roles, but I just don't think Serial Killer was for her. I don't think she pulled it off all that well. So that's why this ranking is just the Ghostface reveal for 4 just isn't very high for me. The movie was okay. This definitely would have to, unfortunately, overall, of all the Scream movies, be my least favorite. And like I said, I don't hate the movie. It's just, if it had to be ranked, it happens to be the least favorite. So that's the reveal for that one, is her cousin. She actually, we think, is the only survivor at one point. We think that she got away with it. But Sydney, of course, survives and is able to ultimately take her down. Now, the thing with 4 is I've heard some people say it was ahead of its time with the whole need an obsession for internet fame. And well, that is true in some aspects. And if it were taken very seriously, I think this could have been one of my favorites. But like I said, I think after the character reveal, I think it just became, like I said, it being corny, it was just too much to where I couldn't take it seriously. I couldn't take the movie seriously after that. And so if they had taken if they have taken a much more serious approach to it, I think this one could have been my favorite. But, it is what it is. And then now, after a ways waiting from the third to the fourth one, we have to wait quite a bit to get to the fifth one as well. So this is part of the whole thing with Halloween, for example, where we have the original and we have the one for 2018 where they're both the same name, Halloween. So the same thing with Scream 5, as Scream fans will call it, is it's just Scream. Now, I really do like the cover for this. I thought it interesting. It feels different. This one is 4K. So if you're looking to get a copy of Scream 5, there's, of course, the DVD, the Blu-ray, the 4K, and the 4K Steelbook. So you have multiple copies of getting this one on physical. So it's got a neat front. It's got a neat back. Of course, still Paramount. So we have the 4K Steelbook. But I really like this cover a lot. And this one, its opening feels the most like the first one because that's what it was meant to be. This one, as I call it, the requel, it was meant to sort of mimic the original one while having something different at the same time. And so Scream 5 also cements itself as a franchise first for Tara, being the first victim of Ghostface, first victim of the opening scene to survive. And so that was something that came as a surprise, and that's not the first surprise of this movie. This movie, I think, had the best plot twists to it, which, like I said, knowing nothing about knowing nothing about it going into it, made it a much better experience. So that was fun. So we get Sam Carpenter. Sam and Tara are sisters, and so Tara has her friends. Sam has her boyfriend. And this is the group of characters that are going to try to stop Ghostface from attacking again. Because they're all rallying behind Tara because she survived this attack. So they know he's coming. They know Ghostface is coming after them. And so as sort of we get past the opening, I would say 20, 30 minutes into the movie. I don't think it took very long at all. We find out that Sam is actually Billy Loomis's daughter. And so this is the next good reveal for the movie because we actually get Skeet Ulrich. He comes back to, in this movie, his character doesn't come back, but the actor is back to portray Billy Loomis as Sam sees him in the mirror, talking to him. And so although we don't get Billy back for the dead, having him in the movie at all, I thought was a great addition to this movie because he just aged really well. They didn't have to really digitally de-age him. They didn't have to really do anything. He just looks the same, just slightly older. So I thought he was a great addition to the movie. And as we get past it, or this first third, I would say, Dewey comes back. Dewey's in this movie just like he's in the rest of them. And for a lot of Scream fans, Dewey's the fan favorite. He was one of my favorites. And Dewey's just always that character that he never does anything wrong. He's the likable character for the franchise. And he starts helping out the characters. And we realize that his relationship with Gale didn't end up working out after all. So he's on his own, and he's been waiting to get back in the game. So now he's back to help them out. And unfortunately, Dewey meets his end in the hospital. He actually saves the day by helping the rest of them get away, but Ghostface ends up killing Dewey after all. And even Ghostface, as a respect to Dewey as a character and as an actor and as an icon for the series, it's telling Dewey it was an honor. So even Ghostface respects Dewey for who he is and his impact on this franchise, if you will. And so that was just something that was really interesting. Dogs are going crazy. So it was cool to see him being respected in this franchise because, like I said, he was a fan favorite for so many. And after his passing, of course, Gale has had a small part in this movie so far, but after this, now Sydney gets involved as well. And as it turns out, when Sydney, Gale, our new characters, they all end up going to the original house that everything went down in the first Scream. So that's sort of the theme with this movie is everything mimics what happened before. And so we get this final showdown with Ghostface versus Sydney yet again. It's revealed that there are two ghost faces. So we have Richie, which is Sam's boyfriend, and we have Amber, which is Tara's friend. So they end up being sort of a weak reveal. Fortunately, they're just toxic fans of the in-universe Stab franchise, which in the Scream movies, Stab are the movies that are based off of the events and what happened in the movie. So it's sort of a movie in the movie. And so Richie and Amber, it's sort of a okay reveal. It was nothing exciting. It wasn't shocking. And as he's revealing himself, he has this quote, "Yeah, it's disappointing that it's me." And for fans, it's like, well, yeah, it is disappointing. One, because he's a likable guy, and it's hard to see Jack Quaid as this killer. But two, it was disappointing because having such a lovable character be Ghostface is just sort of odd. And so I just don't think it really mixed well with the movie, especially having these toxic fans. Just toxic fans is what killed Dewey. So it just made his death, it wasn't meaningless, but it just doesn't make it as respectful as I think it could have been. Respectful is not really the right way to put it, but it didn't sit well with me. And so the reveal, like I said, it was okay, but yet again, we have two ghost faces, like in the original. This takes place in the first house, just like the original. Sydney and Gale, they're the ones that get the showdown with the ghost faces, like in the original. And so it was overall a good movie. I just wish that maybe they could have kept Dewey around a little longer. But regardless, it is what it is. This movie was pretty interesting. It had, like I said, franchise first, having Billy back, having Tara survive the opening, having all of the meta jokes in it, which the meta jokes, there was more in this movie than the rest, I feel. And it was spot on. So that part was entertaining. So overall, Scream 5 was pretty good. It's not my all-time favorite just because the first one was so iconic for me. And so now we move on to the sixth one. Now, the sixth one really wanted to do something different, but I don't think every decision was made with the most original intent. I think it was made just to be different. And sometimes that works, but in this movie, I think it was just a little odd at times. So let's get into it. So the opening for Scream 6 actually there's this girl that's trying to meet up with this guy for this date, and as she is led to an alley looking for him, she ends up being murdered, and it's revealed Ghostface killed her. But then Ghostface takes off his mask, and I remember the gasp in the theater saying, you can't do this. This is what is this? Ghostface revealing himself in the beginning. This isn't right. And so what's pretty cool is in this opening, as he gets back to the apartment, Jason and Greg, these are two friends, they're two ghost faces in the opening. They are wanting to finish the movie that Richie was making in the first one. And so Jason and Greg are two ghost faces, but what turns out happening is another unforeseen third ghost face kills these two ghost faces. So it's really the first time. Not only do we get a Ghostface reveal in the opening, but this is the first time we've had Ghostface versus Ghostface. Now, of course, they both aren't in full costume, which I think could have made it that much more interesting if it happened that way. But having Ghostface versus Ghostface was pretty interesting. Not gonna lie, it was an entertaining opening scene. And as we move on from that, Sam and Tara are both struggling with what happened in the fifth movie. Sam, she was pretty violent. She gets a violent streak, killing Ghostface in the last film, and so That's the thing with Sam is I think of all of the heroes in the franchise, she is definitely the most brutal one. I know there was a kill count. Someone on YouTube has the list for you guys, but she like stabs Ghostface nearly 30 times. It's absolutely insane. And so she cements herself as the most brutal hero of this franchise. And so the idea that she's Billy Loomis's daughter, the idea and theory of maybe she is ultimately going to become a Ghostface, I think that theory gives it a little bit more intensity, a little bit more suspense. And that was a thing with Scream 5 that I think having, um, if you remember the cop lady from Scream 4, she dies, her son dies, Dewey dies. Scream 5 definitely had the highest stakes for a Scream movie. Sydney stabbed, I think Gail was stabbed. Of course, they survive, but you have Scream 5, I think, had the highest stakes in the other movie. And Scream 6 was sort of the same way, as they're constantly making fun of the meta jokes. Like they said in the fifth one, legacy characters aren't safe anymore because now it's a requel, and making fun of what's happening in the movie, which is exactly what the movie is. I think that's the cleverness of the jokes and part of the Scream franchise as a whole. And it's the same way in the sixth. So as we move on, we have Ghostface attacks, and the thing with this one is Ghostface uses a gun. Ghostface is out in public. Ghostface is out in the daylight. So there's a lot of firsts for Ghostface where he's killing random people. A lot of times in the other movies, Ghostface has always targeted specific people, either related to Sydney or now Sam and Tara. But in Scream 6, he's killing people in a gas station. So the killing was definitely a higher killing spree. It was definitely more random. And that I think raised the stakes a little bit more because if side characters aren't even safe, what's going to happen to the main characters? And so Kirby, who's a character in Scream 4, actually returns in Scream 6 as an FBI agent. And so, or she's a government agent. I forget exactly what it was, but she's tracking Ghostface as well. And so you have governments involved. We have, our main characters involved. Now, Gail is in this movie, but this is the first movie that Neve Campbell is not a part of. So it cements itself as a first for that, which is unfortunate because she is returning for Scream 7. That means Scream 6 is the only movie without her. I wish they could have made an extended edition where she was in an end credit scene. Even if it had nothing to do with Ghostface, it could have been nice if she was at least had a very small part of the movie. Because now she's not in every movie of the franchise, when she very well almost or easily could have been. So it's just unfortunate, but it is what it is. So in the sixth movie, like I said, as Ghostface is on this random killing spree. Everything is sort of hinting at maybe it's Stu Mockery. A lot of people are theorizing about that. People are still theorizing that about Scream 7. I think they always will. And that's sort of the fun of it, is with this movie and this franchise, is wondering who's going to come back, who can come back. Billy was shot in the head. He was killed by headshot, so there's no way he's coming back. But Stu, his face was smashed into a TV, so he could be crispy fried, but he could be alive and crispy fried. We don't know. So in the Scream 6, as we get sort of toward the closing, there's news articles they find suggesting did Stu Mockery survive? And so where they find the TV that killed him, and they wonder. Someone makes a comment. Someone said, "Oh, well, this is the TV that Stu Mockery died to," and so one of the characters say, "Yeah, if you believe he's really dead." So I think the director just sort of put that in there to sort of give fans a little bit of a guessing room to suspect he would come back. And so the whole thing with Scream 6 that I find interesting is Killer is actually using the original Ghostface masks throughout the movie. So it keeps you guessing at, did one of the previous Ghostfaces survive, and are they back? And not only that, but there's also a shrine of the Ghostface masks and suits and weapons and the knife that Billy used, and the TV that kills Sumakri. So there's just, it's almost, it feels nostalgic in that sense because of all these, not Easter eggs, because they're not hidden, but all these little things and details that make it nostalgic. I thought made it fun, and it was interesting as well. So, Scream 6 overall, unfortunately for me, even though it had a really interesting reason or kind of reveal, I think this was the weakest Ghostface reveal. So we have Richie's family, which sort of feels redundant because it would have been nice if we can get something completely different, but it was Richie's father and his two siblings are the Ghostface. So now it's a franchise first for having 3 Ghostfaces. Now, in this reveal, we see that there are 3 Ghostfaces, but only 2 of them have the costume on at the same time. It would have been cool if we could see 3 of them having a costume at the same time, but it just didn't turn out that way. What was interesting in this movie kept you guessing who is going to be Ghostface. Made you think maybe it could be Stu. The movie tried to make you think it could be Kirby. Some people thought, did Gail finally snap? And or could it be Sam going through whatever she's going through? A lot of people kept guessing throughout this movie. And the one thing that I thought was interesting is the reveal was something no one expected, but it was just sort of confusing because one of the ghost faces, they had already faked her death. And so it sort of feels unfair to the fans. If you already kill someone as a victim, making you think that's part of the impact of the movie, to then surprise she's actually one of the ghost faces. It feels like it wasn't fair to the fans to try to guess who it was. This is, I think, the franchise first where Ghostface reveal was someone who we thought was already dead. And so, like I said, there's just all these things about the movie that tried to be different. And, well, it is different, but I think having someone who had already died be Ghostface, it just felt a little cheap. The acting was fine. The violence, the fight scenes were fine. I just wish they had chosen a different reveal. And being Richie's family just felt redundant. So I wish they had chosen original characters for that as well. But what this movie does give us is one of the best scenes for Gail. She actually gets a one-on-one with Ghostface, where it's her versus Ghostface. Ghostface is coming after her, but she actually gets the jump on him. She ends up shooting him, and it was done in the most clever way. She ends up calling him back. Here's where the ringing is coming from, and shoots through the door and hits him. So Gail gets one of the best scenes of the franchise because of this. And of course, as fans were fearing that this is her final scene, but it turns out it's not. She did survive. She isn't seen after her attack, but it is referenced that she's fine. So I'm hoping she's back for Scream 7, but I think that's uncertain at this point. So we'll see what happens. So with this character reveal, with the Ghostface reveal, of course our heroes end up killing the Ghostfaces. And just like in the first one, Sam gets a massively brutal kill. It's just absolutely violent. And one of their friends had actually been stabbed 20 times by 2 or 3 ghost faces. I mean, this guy was the least likely to survive. But he's perfectly fine in the end. And so, between one, the ghost face being someone that died, and having one of their friends survive the unsurvivable, it felt very plot armory in this movie, just to have the point that they wanted to make. So overall, I do think Scream 6 has the weakest Ghostface reveal, only because not only did it feel redundant, his daughter being one of the ghost faces felt unfair, and 3, they just weren't all that interesting of characters. They didn't contribute all that much. They didn't have a huge impact on the movie like Billy did, or like Jill did, or like Mickey did. And so it just becomes forgettable. They're just, honestly, in my opinion, the most forgettable ghost faces, even more so than the 4th, I would say. And so, as we wrap up this franchise, unfortunately, due to what studio ended up doing, Sam and Tara, their characters will not be back for Scream 7, but we are getting Neve Campbell returning, so it's bittersweet because we have a great return, but we also lost 2 great actresses that contributed a lot to this franchise. And another part that's bittersweet is the ending for Scream 6 is them leaving the ghost face mask behind and walking away. So it's almost symbolic for them leaving Scream behind as the actresses aren't returning. And so overall, they've obviously they're great, successful actresses. So they're in other movies with great roles. I think they made an impact on the Scream franchise, even though they were only in the two. I look forward to hoping one day maybe they could return, but obviously there would have to be a lot of lucky scenarios to happen for that to happen. But irregardless, I am excited for Scream 7. Even if Nev Campbell was returning, I'm still a fan of this franchise. Um, I still like the movies, and I'm excited for the next one. So I don't know if I showed you guys the Scream 6 steelbook, but this is from one of the subway scenes in the movie. So I just remembered. I don't remember if I showed you guys, but it's got a neat front and back to it. As one of the few steelbooks that doesn't have a quote on the back, actually. But overall, it's nice having the steelbooks for these. I'm hoping they'll make a steelbook for the fourth one at some point, but it's not very likely at the moment, but we'll see. So let me know what you think about the Scream franchise. That's my ranking for them. I think the first is still the best in so many different categories, but obviously a lot of people really, really love the fifth one. So with all that being said, I'm excited for the 7th. Let me know if you're excited for the 7th. Thank you guys for sticking with me for this video, and I will see you all next time.